Next on AM 1480 WLEA, the Newsmaker Show. Here's Brian O'Neill.
He's here, and you know what that means.
We're going to do it right now, Brian.
It's Alfred University political science professor emeritus, Dr. Robert A. Heineman.
Thanks for inviting me, Brian.
Yes, we should do this once a week.
At least, yes.
Dr. Bob, I have so many Washington questions to ask you, and I think our listeners would be interested to know what you think of these things. But let's start out, though, with the State Senator Kathy Young race. Now, Jonathan Mark, the race for the Young seat, Young left several weeks ago, getting squeezed out due to political moves by Long Island Republican leader, State Senator John Flanagan. Did you now? Jonathan talked about this yesterday. He was talking about how there was a big party for Senator Young. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Over in Livingston County recently. I know you didn't go to that. Did you talk to anyone who had?
Oh, I did. Yes, I talked to a number of people, and it went really pretty well. Mr. Crandall, of course, attended because of our close relationship between Allegheny County and Livingston County and his many long associations with Kathy. Really, but it was kind of interesting because apparently the county Republican chairman from Livingston County didn't show up. I guess he claims he didn't know anything about it, which is may well be true. I don't know.
Is he a George Borrello man?
Yeah, he is. And,
oh, wow.
And
Livingston County is her home territory.
Oh, yeah.
She's
carried,
from Avon.
You're interrupting me. She carried her section. Lowell Conrad, when he was Republican county chairman of Livingston County, Kathy would carry 80 to 20. That was the margin she would carry up in that area. So, yeah, and she's from Avon originally. So, but it went very well, and she's a class act, and so I hope we'll be hearing more from her in that respect. It does appear, though, that in the race now for her seat, our intimations that Mr. Borrello is a hand-picked candidate of Mr. Flanagan are increasingly being substantiated. We now have ads being run on various Spectrum, I guess, and some other social media sources, and they clearly state sponsored and paid for by the State Senate Republican Campaign Committee. So Mr. Flanagan is actually paying for Mr. Borrello's ads, and it clearly substantiates our view that he's a hand-picked candidate of Mr. Flanagan and Mr. Akshar from Binghamton.
Fred Akshar, the Binghamton State Senator.
Yeah, the guy who called our county chairman and told him that he wanted Crandall out of the race. Mr. Akshar's had some problems since then.
Uh-oh.
Because, as you know, he's conceded that he entered into a intimate relationship with the mother of a son of a boy who was murdered over there while he was investigating the case.
Is he law enforcement or a lawyer?
He was a sheriff's deputy, under sheriff, I'm not sure there. But he was the liaison on the case. He was the investigator. And the woman has since moved out of New York State and said that she thought that he had taken advantage of her emotional and state of grievance, which anybody, I think, that looked at this situation could see that this is highly unprofessional conduct. The sheriff over there says, well, there's nothing against our rules for the sheriff's department. I would have advised him not to do it. Are you kidding me? I mean, you get the sense these guys in Albany.
It doesn't seem like a homicide case is really good meet and greet time.
We got that exactly right, Brian. And you don't hear Flanagan, who has picked this guy as his minority whip, saying something like, oh, golly, that shouldn't have happened or whatever. And certainly Akshar has not apologized for it. And I see now he's given out a Woman of the Year award to one of the deputies in the Broome County Sheriff's Department, trying desperately to. I mean, it's just who needs
You're
these
not a
people?
Fred Ashkar fan.
And I'm not a Flanagan fan. And Borrello, I think, is a very nice guy. But come on, let's pick our own state senator, folks. Okay, well, that's enough of that.
What do you like about Kurt Crandall? What does he bring to the table?
Well, he brings, first of all, proximity. He is within, he may not like what he's doing, but he's within 25, 30 minutes of you're going over and throw rotten tomatoes at him if you want. I mean, Borrello is a good 2.5, 3 hours from Dansville, and a good, 2 hours, 2.5 hours from Alfred. What are we doing here?
Now, that was true of Young, but she was highly accessible.
That was not true of Young. Young was from Wlea. And so she was from the center of the district, really. And your point is well taken.
Yeah, she drove all
over the place. Yeah, she was there for everything. And that's not going to happen with Mr. Borrello if he were to win. There are plenty of other things I can make, but the other point I would make here is that Mr. Crandall is running as a Republican, and he never considered any other line. He's always been a Republican. He's running as a Republican, and he will accept the decision of the Republican voters. Mr. Borrello is running as a Republican, independent, and conservative. Now, I don't know. I just don't know where he stands on that. And, he's been county executive for Chautauqua County for 14 months, something like that. So it's not clear at all, what the guy stands for or where he's coming from. So, in any case, I think, I could go on, but I'm not here to advertise Kurt Crandall.
You're a Kurt Crandall, though, man.
I am,
can tell.
No, absolutely. I was on his committee on vacancies and such. But the idea of letting these guys from Albany and Long Island pick who our next state senator should
That's very telling about Ashkar, though.
Yeah.
That he would call up and say, hey, the Senate Republican leader wants so-and-so in there, get your guy out. That's not very nice.
Well, no, we didn't think so either. Frankly, we were intimidated by that, Brian.
You like my political science observation that's not very nice?
And, the other side of it is the way Flanagan treated Kathy Young. I mean, he just totally removed her for all committees, all major committees.
Payback time.
I think it's voters have an opportunity here.
She ran against him, and it was payback time.
Yeah.
Dr. Bob, if we could, I'll tell you one thing we could talk about state-wise.
Statewide?
That ties into Washington, which is where I was headed.
Where are you headed here?
New York State State Attorney General Tish James wants to see President Donald Trump's tax info.
Right.
And she's really pushing for that. Well, this is interesting. Senator Tom O'Mara slammed the New York City Democrats in the state Senate, and this was on Wednesday. And there's a video of it. He said, look, you guys are pushing for legislation to pass to fight off any chance of Trump making any presidential pardons for anyone in New York State. You're pushing legislation to help the state take away Trump's privacy tax rights. You're pushing legislation that would hurt his one of his golf courses downstate. And O'Mara said, what does this do for New York State residents?
Right. He's absolutely right. I mean, it's just it's overkill, to put it mildly, or overreach. And Senator O'Mara is absolutely right. And I think the people agree with him. The one interesting issue there that I think it could get really involved is trying to force the release of Trump's state income tax. I'm not certain they can do that. And I think the problem of what they're trying to do is get at his federal income tax, because obviously your state income tax is based on your federal returns. And I'm not certain, but what the feds might not have some say in that. So this, I think, is pretty clearly going to be headed to the courts and could be tied up for quite a while.
You say that you're not certain that the state has a right to the tax info from the Washington IRS. Question, will the state get it anyway?
Well, I think if Trump's attorneys take it to court, this could drag out for quite a while, and because it raises a lot of issues, one of which is the supremacy of federal law, and another one of which is privacy, and there are a number of other issues that could come up here too. Now, the one thing we should look at here is the big picture, Brian. I know you're a big picture guy.
That's me. No details.
And I think what you should be aware of, and I think people are aware of kind of dimly, is that the U.S. Senate has been appointing federal judges hand over fist at over the last few months, so that Mitch McConnell has appointed, I think, at least 100 federal judges here in the last year, and a lot of these federal judges are to federal circuit courts of appeal, so that increasingly now you're getting federal judges that are, to put it mildly, quite conservative. And in addition to that, of course, President Trump, I think, has a lot of support now on the U.S. Supreme Court. So as these issues bubble up and come up through the courts, they're going to find, I think, a pretty receptive, pretty sympathetic court system for the president. And so there, I mean, the New York State thing, I think, is quite complicated. But then you've got the contempt citation issued by the House Judiciary Committee. You've got other efforts to get Trump's federal income tax returns. You have McGain, is it, who was attorney in the White House, being called before, I think, the Senate Judiciary Committee, or the House Judiciary Committee. I'm not quite certain. But Trump has extended executive privilege to that. He's also extended executive privilege to the unredacted Mueller report. And I think he probably has a basis for doing that. Now, again, executive privilege is the president's right to confidentiality, and your right to confidentiality in any communications you have with the president. And only if there's a criminal investigation underway does the executive privilege run into some exceptions. So you could make a case, I think, for the Mueller report, which was to the Justice Department, to the White House. That could be seen as a form of communication with the president. So these are areas the Supreme Court is going to have to begin to define a little more clearly. And I think you got a court that's going to be fairly sympathetic to the president.
Dr. Bob, what about this on the idea of going after Trump Jr., Donald Trump Jr.?
Yeah, well,
and the Senate Intelligence Committee subpoenaing
was it the Senate or the
Trump
House
Jr.?
Intelligence Committee? I'm not sure.
It's the Senate Intelligence Committee, according to Fox News.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Again, how
would this be tolerated by the establishment if it was anybody else's besides Trump's kid?
Well, I don't think. I mean, after all, if it's the Senate Judiciary Committee, that's controlled by Grassley and the Republicans. So I don't think
it's Senate Intelligence.
Is it Intelligence or Judiciary?
Intelligence.
Oh, okay. Gee, I don't know who the chair is. Is that Lindsey Graham? I'm not sure who the chair of that is. But it's a majority Republicans. So I would think Kushner. No, it's Trump Jr., right? That they're calling. Yeah. I think he'll be treated reasonably well.
It's a guy named Richard Burr.
Yeah, okay. I think he's from North Carolina.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think it may give him a chance to explain. I assume this goes into the meeting at the Trump Towers again.
That nonsense.
Yeah. So, okay, go ahead.
I think it's, the willingness to destroy this guy, his business, his family.
It's unbelievable, isn't it?
Anything to do with,
It's incredible. Yeah.
I was just saying, the one thing the establishment did not do is take over the office of the people who release economic statistics. Which offices are these?
Well, Labor does. And I don't know if Commerce still has power over some of that or not.
Apparently that's the only area that the establishment types, Democrat or Republican, don't control with the agenda guys don't control because
well, you got to be a little careful
the info
with
that's come out about Trump's economy is good.
Yes, but they do change the way they measure some of these things, and sometimes that's pretty favorable to the administration in power. But I do want to make a point here as you're moving along here in terms of the economy, which is now at 3.6% unemployment, which, I mean, it can't get much lower than that. I mean, I don't know what will happen. The place will explode here in terms of jobs. But think of this, Brian. Now just think on this. The Democrats and Republicans, don't burn anything out there, but the Democrats and Republicans have agreed to a $2 trillion infrastructure bill to build bridges and repair roads across the country, which is sorely needed. There's no question about it.
I thought the purpose of government was to investigate the president.
Well, see, there you millennials have been misled on that. But the point is that is going to create a huge number of jobs and pour a ton of more money into the economy. So you got an economy that's red hot right now, and if this $2 trillion bill goes through, which I think Trump has agreed to, you're going to drop that unemployment rate even more. This is amazing, Brian. That's what this is.
Dr. Bob, you took the words right out of my mouth. Okay, North Korea on yesterday, launched 2 short-range missiles. They did some other things on Saturday similar to that. Then you've got Iran. B-52s from Louisiana are heading towards, do I say Qatar? Qatar, to deal with problems from Iran.
Yeah.
Okay, that's serious stuff.
I think the Iranian thing is really quite serious. The North Koreans, I don't see that as terribly serious. It's just they're kind of poking and pestering there again. But we're not sending B-52s over there and moving aircraft carriers in there just to be spending the taxpayers' money. I think, and apparently Pompeo cut short a meeting in Germany earlier this week and headed toward Iraq to basically get involved in what they see, I guess, as a threat from the Iranians. And I assume this is from satellite images and their ability to intercept Iranian communications. They have been convinced that they're moving troops and I don't know what else. Maybe try to shut off, the Straits of Hormuz or whatever there, which is a very narrow passage where all the oil cargo ships go through. And, of course, Iran has threatened over the years again and again to try to shut that off. I don't think we'll put up with it, though. I think if they move troops in there and try to, I think we will respond pretty dramatically.
Now, the former host of this show, one Kevin P. Dorn, used to refer to John Bolton as Bomber Bolton.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Trump says, and this is just recent, that he tempers John Bolton's hawkish instincts in Washington.
Yeah. No, Bolton's a hawk. He's a dangerous man, and I was concerned, frankly, when he got appointed to the position he is, which is, I think, a top national security advisor of some sort. But, he's one of these guys, and they're all over Washington inside the Beltway, who just hangs around, goes to all these conferences, gets up and gives papers and makes presentations, and he just doesn't go away. And so when you need, and I think he was ambassador to the UN for a while there, I believe. When you're looking around for somebody to take a spot here or there, well, John's around, you stick him in there. Now, this obviously is something more than just sticking him in there. I mean, this is a really important position, and a position where we need somebody with a little less hawkish approach to the world, that's for sure. And it could well be that Trump is slowing him down a little bit. It's a little scary in itself. Yes.
Yeah, and that it does kind of make you uncomfortable with him there in some ways.
Yeah.
Different people have criticized the Trump administration, saying, that Trump has a lot of big shots from Goldman Sachs.
Oh, yeah, well, that's a pretty important investment firm, yes.
Yeah, and, Trump has a lot of suspicious establishment types there, but he doesn't go in that direction. Why is that?
No, because he's basically been outside that bunch most of his career. And that's, he knows who they are. He interacts with them because they have money, and he's interacted with them because they have money. But he's not one of them, no. He's
well, I'm one of
us,
you,
Brian.
And you're one of me, and we've got to go.
Yes, okay, well, let's leave it on that note.
I'll see you, Doc.
All right.